My name is Cheryl Bjork, and I still remember the exact second my mom smiled at me like she was doing me a favor. While handing my sister a brand new apartment and handing me what looked like a haunted, collapsing house. And the crazy part is, they thought they were being smart. They thought they were dumping a worthless problem on the responsible daughter and rewarding the favorite with something shiny. What they didn't know, what they didn't even bother to check, is that the real value was never the peeling paint or the broken windows. It was the land they accidentally signed over to me. And when they tried to take it back after I rebuilt everything, it turned into the kind of betrayal that makes you go quiet. Not because you're weak, but because you're finally done. So, if you've ever been treated like the practical one who's expected to accept scraps with a smile, stay with me, because this one ends in a way they still can't believe. I was 27 when my mom texted me, "Come over tonight. Family talk." And in my family talk was never warm. It was a meeting. A decision had already been made, and my job was to react in a way that made them feel like good parents. When I walked in, my dad was sitting upright in the living room like he was about to announce a policy change. My mom had that tight little grin she puts on when she wants credit for generosity. And my sister Tessa was on the couch, scrolling through her phone, calm as always, like she already knew she'd be the winner. Tessa has always been the golden child. She's the one who needs support, the one who deserves comfort, the one who can't be expected to struggle. And I've always been the other one, the capable one, the one who can handle it. Which is just a pretty way of saying, Cheryl will be fine even if we're not fair. My dad cleared his throat and said they'd been thinking about our futures, about giving both daughters a real start. My mom jumped in, saying they wanted us to feel secure, stable. Then she looked at Tessa and said, like she was announcing a prize, "We bought you an apartment downtown." Bought, fully. Not a little help, not a plan, not a loan. Bought. New building, security, gym, elevator, everything. Tessa finally looked up and smiled like she'd been expecting it. Then my mom turned to me and said, "And for you, Cheryl, we're giving you a house." For a split second, my heart actually lifted. A house is big. A house is something you build a life in. It sounded like maybe for once things were going to be balanced. Then my dad slid a folder toward me. I opened it, and the hope drained out of me so fast it was almost embarrassing. The house in the photos looked abandoned. Cracked walls, broken windows, sagging roof, weeds taller than my knees. It didn't look like a gift. It looked like a punishment disguised as responsibility. My mom rushed to explain, "It has potential, and you're good with projects." That line hit me like a slap. Tessa needed safe and ready, so she got luxury. I was practical, so I got decay. I wanted to argue. I wanted to ask why fair always meant Tessa got comfort and I got character building. But I did what I always did. I nodded. I said, "Thank you." I swallowed it, because I'd been trained my whole life to keep the peace even when it cost me. A week later, I got the keys and walked into that house alone. The air smelled like dust and damp wood. Half the lights didn't work. The floors creaked like they were warning me to turn around. That first night it rained, and I heard the sound that instantly tells you you're in trouble. Drip, drip, drip. I found the leak and put a bucket under it in the living room like I was running a sad little water feature. I sat on the floor with my back against the wall and stared at that bucket filling up, thinking, "Cheryl, what are you doing?" Then I told myself out loud, "I'm going to make this mine." Not because they believed in me, because I refused to be broken by being treated like the less important daughter again. So I worked. I worked my normal job in the day, picked up extra shifts at night, and spent weekends learning how to fix things. I watched tutorial after tutorial. I borrowed tools. I scraped my knuckles raw. I patched drywall, replaced a window, sealed drafts, cleaned out years of trash in the yard. I learned how expensive potential really is. There were nights I fell asleep in my clothes because I was too tired to shower. There were mornings my hands hurt before I even got out of bed. But month by month, the house changed. It wasn't fancy, but it became solid, warm, safe. And the weird part was, I started feeling proud. I'd taken something everyone dismissed, and I was turning it into a real home with my own effort. Now, here's the detail that saved me later. When my parents gave me the paperwork, I actually read it. I didn't just sign and smile. I read every page because something about their eagerness felt suspicious, like they were too happy to hand me this gift. About 6 months in, I started hearing local chatter about developers looking in the area. Nothing official, just rumors, but enough to make me curious. Instead of ignoring it, I did something my family never expects from me. I asked a professional. I went to a real estate attorney, not to start a war, not to get revenge, but to understand what I owned. The attorney reviewed the documents and his expression changed. He looked up and said, "Cheryl, do you know what you have here?" I said, "A fixer-upper that's draining my savings." He gave a small, almost sympathetic laugh and said, "No, you have land, the parcel, and it's in your name cleanly." My stomach flipped. He explained that the house was one thing, but the land beneath it, the actual parcel boundaries, were what mattered. And the zoning situation was unusual enough to make the property valuable to the right buyer. I asked the question that mattered most. "Can my parents take it back?" He said, "They can pressure you emotionally, but legally, no. You're the owner." I went home and stood in my half-finished kitchen and felt this calm settle in. Because for the first time, I had something they couldn't guilt me out of. I kept renovating, but I got quiet about it. I stopped sending my mom photos. I kept my answers vague when Tessa asked, "Is that old place still falling apart?" I just smiled and said, "It's coming along." And I kept my documents organized like my peace depended on it, because it did. Fast forward to when the house finally looked good. Like, genuinely good. Fresh paint, repaired floors, new windows, the yard cleaned up. That's when my parents suddenly wanted to visit. My mom called and said, "We want to see what you've done." The second they walked in, my dad froze in the doorway, like he didn't recognize the place. My mom's eyes scanned the room, and I waited for pride, for a compliment, for anything that sounded like love. What I saw was calculation. She turned to me and said, "We need to talk." My dad went quiet, jaw tight. My mom said, "Tessa's apartment is smaller than we expected." I stared at her because that wasn't a problem, it was a preference. Then she said, "This house is clearly the better asset now, so we're going to rebalance things." And she said it so casually it made my skin go cold. "Tessa will move in here. You can take the apartment." The apartment that was already in Tessa's name. The one already decorated. The one she'd been posting like it was her dream. My mom said it like we were swapping sweaters. I said, "So you want me to hand over the house I rebuilt to Tessa?" My mom's smile snapped off her face. She said, "Don't be dramatic, Cheryl. It's family. We're making it fair." That word, fair, always shows up after I've done the work. I said, "No." My dad finally looked up and tried, "Let's all calm down." My mom snapped, "We gave you that house." I said, "You transferred it to me." She rolled her eyes and said, "Same thing." Then she hit me with the line that made everything crystal clear. "Tessa will be here in 2 days with her things. We'll handle the paperwork. You have 48 hours. 48 hours. Like I was a guest in my own life. They left after that, acting like it was decided. 2 days later, a moving truck pulled up. Tessa stepped out wearing sunglasses and confidence, smiling at the neighbors like she already owned the place. My mom followed behind her looking smug. Tessa walked right up to me and said, "So, where do you want me to put my stuff?" Like I was the assistant. Like I was temporary. I said, "Tessa, you're not moving in." She laughed and said, "Mom said it's handled." I looked at my mom and said, "It's not." My mom snapped, "Stop embarrassing yourself." My dad tried to mediate. "Let's talk inside." So we went inside, and I let them stand in my living room for a moment and feel comfortable. Then I walked to my kitchen drawer and pulled out my folder. My folder. I set it gently on the counter and said, "This is the deed, the parcel map, the zoning documents, and a letter from my attorney." Tessa's smile disappeared so fast it was almost funny. My dad picked up the papers and started reading, and I watched his face change line by line. My mom leaned over his shoulder like she could intimidate ink. Tessa whispered, "Are you serious?" I said, completely. My mom tried guilt. After everything we've done for you, I said. You mean after you gave me a collapsing house and called it help? My dad said quietly, we didn't think it would turn into this. I looked at him and said, no, you didn't think I would turn it into this. Silence. That was the moment they realized the truth. They didn't give me a gift, they tried to dump a liability, and I turned it into an asset they wanted for Tessa. But they couldn't have it because they didn't own it. I told them calmly, if you try to move her in, my attorney will respond.